And welcome to the Super Terb Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Turbo Group, Cole Banker, HPW, a.k.a. Super Terb, a.k.a. Coach Terb. And today I'm with Amy Langston Rabini.
Hello.
And we thought it would be great to I can't believe it's the end of June. And this month's kind of gone slow but fast. And I thought there'd be no time to do a little 2025 market outlook.
It's January.
What did I say, June?
Yes.
I'm hoping it's June already. January. So it's January. And we've just been having a lot of questions from clients and just what this year is going to look like, what it's going to do. And I thought there's no better time. Let's come on. Let's talk about it. Answer any questions you guys may have while we're live here on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn land. Of course, you're listening to us live. Well, not live, taped on Spotify, Apple. And this is actually episode 83. It's hard to believe. My buddy George and I started this podcast over 4 years ago. Crazy. And we're on episode 83, where we talk real estate, business, and sports and beer in the triangle. So I'm going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, Amy and I are going to talk 2025 and just see what we think is going to happen. And welcome back to the Super Terb Podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Turbot, your local real estate expert with the Turbo Group, Cole Banker, HPW, a.k.a. Super Terb, a.k.a. Coach Terb, with Amy. Say what's up.
Hello.
And as we said, we thought this would be a great time to talk 2025. And Amy's got some questions that clients have been asking us and just what we forecast. And I thought we could spitball it. So why don't you start us right away? First of all, tell everybody your name again. I've said it 14 times, but say who you are and
I'm Amy
what we
Langston
do.
Rabini, and I am the lead listing agent with Michael and the Turbot Group.
Yes.
Yes.
She does everything. Okay. So what do you got? What's one question that we get a lot of? So we got our questions here that we're hearing a lot of from people, mainly for the market, and what's on people's minds.
Okay, so let's just start off with, how would you describe the current state of the triangle real estate market, like beginning in 2025, where we are?
You know, it's interesting. So 2024, just to go backwards before we go forward, was an interesting year because 2024, we started the year like gangbusters, very busy, kind of had a lull in the summer, which isn't necessarily uncommon. And then we finished with a bang. Been reading a lot of articles just about the market, not only on the micro level here in the triangle, which when we say the triangle, it's Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and of course Durham, surrounding counties here in Wake, and we're in Wake County, which is the center part here in the state of the capital is. It's just interesting to see kind of what the narrative is with the market and what the reality is. And what we're seeing in 2025 as we come out, January is always a slower month. Any market, everything's cyclical. Everybody's kind of brushing off the dust or the snow from New Year's and coming out of hibernation. And February technically kicks off our spring market, specifically here in the Triangle. And it's really busy, probably over the next 4 or 5 months. And it was interesting. I'm out this weekend and it was like something was in the water. Past clients calling us to list or buy. And everybody's kind of keeping an eye on the interest rates. Yeah. And interest rates, as we talk now, depends on the lender and who you've talked to, but are probably hovering around 7%. I know some people can be in the 6s, depends on, credit score, what bank you're working with, and whether you buy points, what have you. But interest rates are still determining a lot of factors with housing affordability and what people can buy. We were expecting rates to come down this year. How much, we obviously don't know, but we're thinking second, third quarter, we're going to see rates maybe in the low 6s. But again, till it happens, I have my fortune teller Terb hat over there on my coat rack. I don't know. But I know a lot of buyers, as I'm seeing too, as we get further away from the COVID era, which I know would be 5 years in March. It's hard to believe that. The rate's the rate, guys. Now, if you're living in a home that is a 3% interest rate, high 2s because you refied or you bought during that time, awesome. That's amazing. But there's still a lot of sellers out there that have great rates, but they're ready for their next home and they're kind of handcuffed. And as we get further away and you're building more and more equity, I think when it's just time, people are going to accept the fact where the rate is. And they're going to jump in. One big thing, though, going back to your question, one big difference we're seeing in this year compared to last year. Last year, it was becoming the trend. We have new construction to look at. Yeah. In the height of COVID 21, 22 timeframe, why we had such rapid appreciation in our area, like most of the country, is is inventory. So our inventory now in Raleigh or Wake County specifically is probably between 2 to 2.5 months supply. Still a far cry to a 5 to 6 month supply that you would want to see for a buyer seller market. That means you have enough homes to offset the demand. At 2, if we said even 2.5, which the last stats was 2.2, if we didn't list another home for 2.2 months in our county, we'd be out of houses. But that also includes new construction. And where new construction is vital and valuable for the buyer, especially the first time buyer, and I'm talking anywhere probably between $400,000 to $600,000, is builders are now offering incentives like buy downs and lower interest rates. And we have to remind our sellers when we go to resell a home or we're on a listing appointment, this is a big thing when pricing your house, because you got to make sure you price your home correctly. So, for example, we had a home orientation today, a final walkthrough, and both those homes were new construction. And the reason they can do these buy downs is for many of these builders, they have lenders that they have within they either own their own financing company, and they have the ability to have the margins where they can offer those incentives, and that's important for buyers to get into their home. So that's what we're seeing, but we're also, it's kind of a little bit like last year. We're busy. People are just trying to time their homes right to get on the market come February, March, April, depending on when they're wanting to move.
Yep. That's a good answer. You touched on a lot of my questions, actually.
I kind of go. I just tee it up.
So what do you think the projected trends are as far as housing prices in 2025?
We're going to continue to appreciate. I can see in Wake County as a whole, we're probably going to appreciate anywhere between 4 to 6%. Some areas maybe 10% when you start looking more in North Raleigh, Cary, inside the Beltline. But on an average, I project to be around 5%. Again, that's what we appreciated from December of 23 to December of 24. Of course, there are areas, if you're looking specifically, Wake Forest, Cary, Holly Springs, Fuquay, they're all going to be a little bit different, but in that same realm. Same thing on the national level, which I wanted to really educate myself on before the podcast, is the national level right now, the average their inventory is at 3.3 month supply. It's about another extra month than us. But it still tells you as a whole, we're in a seller's market. Something I found interesting with the same article, because to me it's clickbait, doesn't sound good, but 2024 was the lowest amount of sales in 30 years. It doesn't mean prices went down. It just means there was less buying. And the reason for that across the board is home affordability of housing. The average first-time buyer now, this blew me away when I heard this stat, is 38 years old. 38. People are just doing things a little bit later in life. We're also seeing more multi-generational living where they live together, whether that's parents with kids and vice versa. And the first-time buyer, the housing market has gone up. So a perfect example here in Wake County, probably if you bought in 19 or 20, or 20, actually we had a listing appointment yesterday. But a particular couple bought in a great subdivision, my neighborhood, Bedford, and they bought in August of 2020. And since that time to now, they've probably appreciated around 50%.
That's crazy.
So if you're a first-time buyer, the average price now in Wake County is just under $600,000, and you factor that into a 6.5%, 7% interest rate, it could be more advantageous to them to say, "Hey, I'll rent," versus the down payment purchase. Which unfortunately, there's nothing against renting, because if you need something short-term or something to lay your head, but to start to really create wealth, you want to get into home ownership, because you're going to continue to build appreciation while paying down your principal. And then you can utilize that equity, whether that's to a second home or, invest in something else. So the reason we saw a slowdown, I think the average first-time buyer now, it was about 22% of the buyers last year, which you want more than that. Mm-hmm. So that's our biggest hurdle, obstacle, everything in the market, both local and on a macro, is housing affordability.
Yeah. So with housing affordability, I was going to ask you, how do you think it affects buyers? And as far as affordable housing for people, what do you see coming up in 2025 as far as more available houses that fit that affordable price?
Well, in our county, when I started selling in 2006, I remember people said we had about 20 years of growth. We're on that doorstep. Yep. And we're starting to see more new home builds, but at the outskirts of the county. Whether it's Southern County, like the walkthrough I was at today was just north of the county line into Durham, but not far from where we are. southern part. So because people are having to go further out because the cost of the dirt is more.
Yep.
Where we are on an urban side, whether that's city limits, you're talking a totally different animal because of what the price is to either do a tear down or renovation. You're seeing more apartment buildings being built as fast as they can.
Yes.
The building can't happen fast enough to offset the demand. And that's why when people come to me and they say the market's going to crash, I say it's not. There's only been 2 times when we've had a recession in our life, well, my lifetime, that we saw the real estate go down. One was, I think, in 91. It went down 1%, in 08, which was man-made, was the financial crisis. Most homes, I'm not saying we were in a recession, but homes actually go up after a recession. And we're going to continue to appreciate. But what we need to do is get back to appreciation at a nice, steady pace versus seeing like 21 alone, 2021, we appreciated it in Wake County at 28%, which is unheard of. So from 20 to 23 at a minimum in Wake County, you appreciated 35% at a minimum. Other parts of the county, more.
Yeah, you're talking
depending
about
on location.
50%, yeah, up north of here.
So it was hard for buyers to keep up with that. And so there's opportunities out there. It's just now it's whether or not it fits, because I don't know, again, I'm not an economist, but I don't know if people's wages have gone up to match what they would need to do to put down the down payment and to buy.
Exactly. So you were talking about new construction. How do you think like new construction projects are going to influence the market as far as pricing, demand, stuff like that?
It just gives buyers more options.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. Or buyers, for example, that may not be able to succeed in a multiple offer situation. Now, what we've seen over the last couple of years as rates went up, and in our state being a due diligence state with due diligence money, buyers that don't have a lot of liquid couldn't compete. They could qualify for the loan, but they couldn't put down 10% in the form of due diligence, right? So with new construction, it gives us just more options, but that's where sellers have to be really aware of their competition, mm-hmm. depending on where they're located and price point, because buyers, even though they can, maybe your home's only a few years old, but there's something to be said to get a brand new home where all their closing costs is paid for and their rates bought down to say 5%. And so as a seller, depending on like if you're in a neighborhood where you were in phase 1 or 2 and they have phase 3 or phase 4 open, mm-hmm. you probably right away have a 10% deduction on your list price if you're needing to sell just because of that. But I still think that's far and few between of what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. It's just we're starting to see a few more options for buyers, and we just didn't have that. So more the merrier, because the buyers are out there, the demand is there, and they're just looking for that reason to buy. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a buyer right now on the fence, or you're waiting for the rate to come down, I understand where you're coming from. At the same time, again, the rate's the rate. As long as it's within your budget, go get it. Because when the rate comes down, if it's to come down 1% on a macro level, 5 million eligible buyers will come off the sideline. Wow. So when that happens, because low supply, we're going to be right back in, I think, where we were. I don't think we're ever going to, I'm never going to say never, but it could be Looney Tune again, Crazy Town again. Just like today.
Yeah.
We helped the client. We saw the house Sunday. They just reduced it a few grand to get a little more interest. It was January. It's also when you list a house. I knew then we're going to have to really hit the pedal to the metal because she also needs to sell to buy. And now there's multiple offers. And I knew what was coming. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean where if this was 3 years ago, this home, for example, is around 425. 3 years ago, if that home's 425, we've been telling our buyers we'd have to go to 500 to get it. 475 minimum, 500 for sure.
Yeah.
Because interest rates were so low, it was like free money. And that's what it took, as well as you had to put probably 40 grand down in due diligence. Now we maybe we may go 5 over with 10,000 in due diligence. It's a far cry what we saw, but there's still going to be multiple offers. It's just, you're not selling it. You're not going to sell for 106% of ask. It's going to be 100, 101, 102, there's right. different variants.
What areas of the triangle do you think will be growing the most in 2025?
That's a great question. I would think, like Wendell's taken off, went 64. Knightdale area, the eastern part of the county, the southern part of the county, down by Chatham County, south of Holly Springs, south of Fuquay. Those areas are probably going to be. Everybody's now overflowing. I never thought we'd sell in Sanford.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you said my house is in Sanford. I mean, nothing in Sanford, but it's about an hour away. Now we're in the car. Pittsboro, the areas over that county line. We have a listing tomorrow in Pittsboro. Mm-hmm. So it's just everybody's going out. So that's where the most growth is going to be, because if you're inside if you're more in the central location, you're seeing tear downs. But what's crazy too is I never thought we'd see $4 to $5 million homes being bought in Raleigh. But for a builder now, this made a lot of sense. I was at a top producers meeting, and builders don't really want to mess with anything unless there's a high margin or a higher price point because of the cost of material and everything. So it takes the right buyer. But we have 60 to 80 people moving here a day out from markets where our market's still on a national level, still very undervalued. Mm-hmm. And our taxes are low, and the price of living to a national level. I think, if you're moving from, say, California up north, parts of Florida, they're like, basically, if you're going to move to California, the house you buy here would be 3 times as much in California, if not 4.
Yes, agreed. When the completion of the second to last part of 540 from Holly Springs to Garner just opened in September. Mm-hmm. So where 540 goes, development goes, right? So,
and that's you make a great point, because in 2006, 540 originally opened back where it went from I-40 went north and stopped at Capitol. Mm-hmm. The highest amount of inventory in the financial crisis was Wake Forest, because everybody would hit Capitol, go up, and that's how Youngsville took off. Mm-hmm. That's where all the new builds were. So when everything hit the fan, we had the highest inventory in the Triangle in Wake Forest, because that was where all the dirt was too, to be able to build.
Exactly. Okay, so
I like these questions.
I know, they're fun. So do you think the ability to work remotely has affected the housing demand, and do you see it continuing this year?
What's interesting about working remotely is you don't have to be somewhere to be there, if that makes sense. So, for example, we sold a home this past year in a nice house kind of in South Raleigh, kind of that mesh point of like Raleigh, Holly Springs, Cary, that little vicinity. And, we sold the house, did well, but a couple people we finished second on, but they bought 40 minutes away, which I'm like, why are you looking down here?
Right.
Buyers now have more options to where they're not tied to a location. Like, I need to be 10 minutes, especially if they don't have kids in school, or maybe they're young kids and they're not a specific target there. Mm-hmm. They're going to find something that's more apt for them, what they're looking for on their lifestyle, but they don't have to be near something to be near. That's where remote learning was big, but remote working has opened those. It's not like I've got to be there.
Right.
Yeah. And just educating our sellers on that, because they're like, why would you look at a house and end up buying something 45 minutes northeast from it? Right. And that's why.
Okay. So you're talking about remote learning, remote working. Like during COVID, North Carolina was basically put on the map. Like, we were a small little state, nobody knew about us. During COVID, we just blew up and everybody knew where we were, and everybody wanted to come live here. And so we had a lot of people migrate from like the Northeast and from California and things like that. So do you see any notable migration patterns in the buyers that you guys talk to that are moving here from out of state? And do you see that continuing?
It's going to, RTP, Research Triangle Park's a big factor that we have great job opportunities here, companies coming here, great universities, great hospitals, taxes are low. And we have anywhere, I say, from 60 plus, really probably 60, but I know when I went to a chamber event for, moving, or stats, we had anywhere from 60 to 80 people still moving here a day. I know a lot of people that are moving from the north. It's mainly to get out of the cold. I hear that a lot.
I don't blame them.
I wish they would bring keep their sports teams up there, but that's whatever. That's a whole nother podcast. That's why we always joke all the Rangers fans are in Cary. But I see that. Plus the taxes, I believe, is up close to 10%. In New York, where here it's usually a little over 1% per thousand in city limits. Give or take the city you're in.
Yeah.
So the cost of living, the fact you can be at the beach in 2.5 hours, the mountains in 3 hours, Charlotte in 2.5. I mean, it's just there's so much. It's a great place to live. We experience all 4 seasons. July and August is probably not our most favorite, but we got our dusting of snow a week ago, which was the first in a couple of years. School, of course, closed for 2 days.
Exactly. So exciting.
But we experienced the seasons, and it's just in the temps today, for example, it's January 31st or 30th, and it's 61 degrees today.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I don't see it changing from people continuing to move here, and that's why the housing supply is so vital and trying to keep up with that demand.
Yeah. So let's get your crystal ball out.
Mm-hmm.
What are your predictions for the North Carolina real estate market in the second half of 2025 and beyond?
I think it's going to be similar to what we've been seeing. I think we're going to see more and more people wanting to possibly sell. As again, we get closer to or away from, it's people have to make the decisions with their interest rates. I think we're going to see even more buyers. I think it's going to be better than last year. Everything hinges, of course, on interest rates.
Yeah.
That's going to help with the affordability. It's going to be a really good year. I only know one way, and that's just to do what we do: head down, work, continue building our relationships. Nurture the relationships we have. We're having a big Super Bowl party next Sunday, and the opportunities are going to be there, but I feel like we're going to still see appreciation again from probably 4 to 6%. I think it's going to be a great second part of the year. It's interesting though, because I think the second and third quarter is going to be, I could see us having a better year, especially better than last year.
Yeah.
But yes, like I touched on at the beginning of the podcast, the beginning of 24, I thought it was like, especially on the list side. 23, we were down about 30%, 35%, similar to most people in the market.
Yeah.
Because people weren't selling. Yeah. People were sitting on their hands. They wanted to see what's going on. Interest rates went from, I remember I blinked in May of 22 is when we saw rates start to teeter up. And I swear we went from like 3 to 7 in 2 months.
Yeah.
I remember 4th of July, we were on 7 plus, if not pushing 8.
Yeah.
So they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish by slowing down the spending. 23, I think everybody kind of sat on their hands, like what's going on. Then 24, like I think people are just at that point, like, hey, it's time to go.
Right.
Like the house we're closing on next week, we do open houses, and the buyers that would come through there, especially the home we had was listed for $349,900, great price point in North Raleigh. I mean, not a lot to find in that price point, but many of the buyers that came through, they were talking about our lease is up in April or May, June. And we're just getting our feet wet because we want to buy. We don't want to renew our lease. So you're going to see a lot of that. And so, again, if you're thinking about buying, start the conversation with us now or whomever you may be working with, because you do not want to wait and lose and be caught up in a lot more competition.
Mm-hmm. Well, the last question I had was, what advice would you give buyers, sellers, or investors navigating our market this year?
Yeah, kind of what I touched on. I would just say it's a little more challenging for investors. We're seeing that because unless they're paying cash, an investment in the rate doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now for investors, because of, especially for those that want to make positive cash flow right away.
Yeah. Because
rates are going to be higher on an investment property than a primary, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, if you're a cash buyer and you're going to buy and hold, there's no doubt, scoop them up because it's just going to continue to go up. Sellers, you're going to continue to build on the equity you've gained at such a rapid pace over the last few years, especially 20 to 23 window, and you're sitting on a lot of equity. It's interesting when we meet with sellers because they feel like the market is softening. The market is corrected. And I have to remind them on the return of investment that they've made, which is just incredible, depending on how long you've owned the house.
True.
You're seeing sellers, though, just like, this will never change, is they'll make their homes math problems because they want to make a certain amount out of the house, which is natural. Yeah. And that's why what leads. And I think you're seeing homes sit a little longer or have reductions because buyers have a few more options and sellers are still, they're not realizing the affordability with interest rates. Now buyers, again, as we said before, if you're able to get out there and buy, I encourage you to do so versus rent, especially if you're going to be somewhere longer term.
Yeah.
Stop paying someone else's mortgage. Start building wealth on your own and make the price. What you want to do is get with your lender. We work with several great preferred lenders. And the first step is starting with them to, first of all, get pre-approved and then see what you qualify for. And most people qualify for more than they want to spend. It's not even so much what you qualify for, it's what you want to spend on a monthly payment when factoring not only principal, interest, but taxes and insurance. So many people back their way into a payment. So a lot of times you could buy up to $600,000-$700,000 with someone would say, you know, I want to be at $550 because that's where I want to be on a monthly. Just get in there, have that conversation now, and then and go get the house. Because if you wait, there's no perfect time. And as I said before, the rate, what are you really saving? You're still saving a decent amount if, let's say, it goes from 7 to 6.5. But at the end of the day, it's like, go get the house if you can afford it. It makes sense because the longer you wait, it's go. You know, you're going to be up against more competition. This is the best time of the year coming up because more homes are going to hit the market.
Yeah.
Because the sellers are timing their job move. Either they're building a new house or they're wanting to time their move for kids to get out of school.
Yeah.
Plus, it warms up. It's daylight savings. You can look at houses till 9 o'clock at night in the next couple, in a couple months. So this is the best time, and that's where, from February to June, we get our busiest markets.
Yeah. And for buyers, especially, get your ducks in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get your pre-approval.
Yeah, like we had a buyer we were helping this weekend, and the condo we were looking at was grossly overpriced. Quite frankly, wouldn't let her buy it. It makes sense. She was going to go through the pre-approval process and then initially was going to stop. I said, no, still go ahead and go through it. Because that way you've at least got it in front of you, or you may need to work on something if your credit's not as good, or you need to pay something down to help with things. So knowing what you can do is half the battle. Yeah. So that's what I tell people. So that way too, if you find a home you love, you're not wasting 48, 72 hours getting pre-approved if they need all your docs and you lose that house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because especially when the spring market comes in, there's more buyers out there. You're not going to have that time.
Mm-hmm. You know what I just realized?
What?
I didn't set up a light.
Oh.
I still think we look okay. A little tough. It's okay. People want to play them. But no, this has been great. This has been great. Yeah. We just wanted to jump on here. It's been a few weeks from our last podcast when I had Coach Stevens on. So if you're out there listening and you want to get on the podcast and talk about your local business that you started, if you're an entrepreneur, reach out to me. I started this podcast when we did to highlight entrepreneurs, local business owners, tell their story, and also promote you at the same time. So if you're all out there, don't have to be even local to Raleigh. Let me know, email us, and we'll get you on the Super Terb Podcast. Mm-hmm. So lastly, we got to talk beer real fast. So I know you're not a big beer drinker.
I like
stouts.
I'm a stout.
So tell everybody your favorite stout.
Oh.
Or better yet, your favorite brewery to have the stout at.
Okay. Well, I'm a Cary girl, so I like Fort Knight.
Yeah.
And I like Bond Brothers. And the favorite stouts that I like are ones that are like barrel aged.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good.
They don't taste like beer. They taste like molasses, basically.
Yeah, so, and they're pretty strong, too.
Yeah,
so they're good. That's the other great thing about here is we got a lot of breweries. We do we do monthly happy hour starting in March, and we rotate the breweries to try to appeal, for people that are living in all different areas, come see us. And I'm a big stout drinker myself, too. Mm-hmm. How about, I know it's not on the title, but whiskey. You got me on your favorite whiskey.
I know. Jefferson's Ocean is my favorite. We still have to find the Jefferson's Tropic.
I know. I'm looking for it. That stuff's smooth. Yeah. It's dangerous.
It is really
all right,
good.
Before we go, probably the game will be over. Who you like in the Super Bowl?
Man.
This is tough.
Who do I like or who do I think will win?
Yeah, I think that's a better question.
Okay. Well, with all the calls this year, I'll go with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm not betting against Mahomes and the Zebras. But I just think there's something about Mahomes now. I've got a lot of good friends that are Eagle fans. If I had to pick a winner, give me Philly. But or who would I want to win? I know I'm dodging my own question, but I feel like if I'm going to bet on the game, I'm putting my money on the Chiefs.
Yeah, me too.
Until he loses, which he only has lost one Super Bowl, and that was to Brady. They could easily won that game. Now, whoever has the ball last, but I think it's going to be actually, even though I know the country probably didn't want to see it if they had to pick. I think a lot of people wanted Bills, Lions, something fresh, especially the Bills. I know those Bills fans, it's continued heartbreak I'm a Panthers fan, so I've been through it. But 4 straight Super Bowl losses, you can't beat Josh Allen's at 0-4 against Mahomes. That's tough. But I still think it's going to be a really good football game. I think the Eagles are better than when they played them a couple years ago. Whenever they played. Well, they've got a great run game. They're younger on defense. They can get after you. And, of course, they got Saquon Barkley. So, anyway. Well, cool. We'll wrap up. Thank you for listening. If you please like podcast. Please follow, subscribe out there in YouTube land. And again, it's Amy and Terb, your local real estate experts with the Terb Group, Coldwell Banker HBW, out of the Triangle, Raleigh-Durham area. If there's anything we can do to be helping you accomplish real estate goals, please reach out to us. Until next time, remember, who you work with matters. We'll see ya. This